Okay, we'll call the January 9th, 2026 work session to order. Stand for a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You want to do the prayer?
Dear Heavenly Father, we just thank you for this day. We thank you for this moisture, Lord. We do ask that you keep everyone safe as they travel on it. We are thankful that we can join here today. And Lord, as we look at the budget restructuring, just to see what we can do for the county and for everyone to be open-minded and take the information in. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
So I guess we have Dave Trabert with Kansas Policy Institute on the phone. So you're going to kind of go over these reports you sent to us along with ideas.
Okay, well, thank you for giving me everyone. Sorry for me doing purpose. The plan was to be there, but we're in storm warning print in that. So just have to push along this way. Just a little bit about me and our organization. For those who aren't familiar with us, my name is Dave Trabert. I'm the CEO of Kansas Policy Institute. I'm also a recovering accountant. So I'm familiar with reading financial statements and budgets. I've prepared more of them than I want to think about, frankly. We're a nonprofit education and research organization. We do a lot of work on education to improve student outcomes. We have a litigation division that sues to protect people's constitutional rights. And we have a school board resource center also that trains school board members on not only financial information, but a lot of information and training to help improve student outcomes. So we've done a fair amount of research on local spending, and it's all over the map. Doesn't mean any of it's right or wrong. It's just, we just look at the numbers and try to help people figure out how they can maybe operate a little bit more efficiently and ease the tax burden. So Todd asked me to sit in on this meeting, and I just want to tell you my role here, as I see it, is strictly advisory. I don't want to tell you, or I don't want you thinking that I'm going to be telling you anything you should or shouldn't do. I'm just, think of me more like a counselor. I'm going to give you some ideas, ask you some questions, try to make sure that you're following a path to the goal, that whatever the goal is that you set as an elected body. And when we take these are always challenging conversations, but they're necessary. And it doesn't mean that anyone, in my opinion, has done anything wrong in the past. Unfortunately, we are where we are, and Seward County is not alone in having property taxes that are frankly unaffordable for a lot of people. And so what we have to do is figure out a way that we can provide a service at a better price, a little bit more efficiently. And keep in mind that the goal is whatever you set the goal to be, but it's about making this a more affordable deal for your taxpayers. And I'll close by saying that, and open it up for questions, but we look at it as not KPIs that have the right answers. The only right answers are really coming from your community. You're elected, people are elected to do, and employees are there to serve the community. And we might have a different opinion, but we really have to understand what our community is. So I'll give you an example in the education world. We've done a lot of these listening sessions. We work with one district that pretty proud of its accomplishments. They were at 43% proficient in reading and math, and the state average was only 30. So they were 10 points above the average. And we said, so you're pretty proud of that, right? And they said, well, yeah, absolutely. I said, well, you think your community would say mission accomplished at 43%? It's stunned because it's 10 thought of it that way. And we said, well, what do you think it would be? And they said, maybe probably somewhere between 70 and 80%. And that's consistent with what we hear. So what that means is there's a lot of work to do to get where the community wants you to be. I don't know what your community expects of the county and providing services and tax levels, but that's something that you elected officials are probably have a pretty good idea, because that's part of why you're there. So that's our approach is no one's to blame for where we are, but we're all responsible for figuring out what needs to be done to meet the community's desires.
So Dave, one of the big things we have to do shortly is look at some very serious modifications to the budget that was established for this year, probably millions of dollars. And that decision is probably going to be made for us by the Board of Tax Appeals. What is the initial process at which we look at prioritizing and categorizing these different aspects of county operation?
Well, we recommend an all of the above approach. There's no one thing that's going to solve it. It's probably going to be a combination of many things. One thing is just looking at where you are, and that is, for example, since 2021, the county expenditures compared to the 2020, 2026, inflation was 22%. We've got a 42% spending increase. So that's bound to create a lot of questions. Why is that? There may be some very good reasons, at least in some cases, why spending has grown a lot faster than inflation. I can guarantee you that that increase is nowhere near what the residents get in their increase in their ability to pay. So it's a serious increase. Some of that I know. And by the way, that is that 42%. I calculated that without counting the money you set aside in reserve for claims. So that's not part of it. I don't know why, but it's just one of the benchmarking things that you have to go through each department and look at how those change and start asking questions. And I hope everybody is able to look at it as I said, it's no one's fault, but we have to figure out what our options are. Benchmarking is another exercise that we see used a lot, and that's why I did the research on for the 2025 budget for all the counties with a population between 10,000 and 30,000. We're kind of in the middle of that, or a little bit above average. So we broke it down to spending per resident by department or however it's on the budget. And it's obvious when you look at those numbers that not all counties do their budgeting the same way. For example, you'll see over $300 per resident in your budget for employee benefits. And some counties show zero. Well, they have employee benefits. Those counties are charging the benefits to the individual departments, where Seward and other counties have it all in one fund. It would be really nice if everybody could use the same accounting procedures, but that just would make this kind of analysis a little bit different. But so, and when you're looking at per resident spending, I want to really emphasize none of those numbers are the right number or the wrong number. This is a starting point for asking questions. So you look at the areas way above, considerably above what looks like an average of most counties. And you want to try to understand how are they providing that service at a lower cost. Now, there may be some circumstances that like an advantage they have or a disadvantage you have that accounts for that, all of it or some of it. That may be, but that's why you start where there's the biggest variances. And you try to figure out, is there a way, what are they doing that we can do to save some money on that area? Employee benefits is one that stands out. Landfill and solid waste is where there's the biggest difference. And we know that that's not because you're overspending, it's because those services are accounted for differently in most other counties. But, so while you don't have a comparison, you can look at what you're spending in those areas and just start with how do we do it. And I know this is hard because I've gone through a lot of times. I did this when I was in the private sector before I joined Kansas Policy Institute. I did this with every for-profit company I ran. And it would invariably, when we started asking now, why do we do it this way? A lot of people really didn't know. And it was just, we've just been doing it that way for a long time. And that's normal. So it can be a little uncomfortable saying, well, let's look at how we're spending it, whether it's money we're spending contracting out or employees we have in providing the service. And we just have to take an honest look at all of this necessary. Can we provide the service? You know, and the question is not in our opinion, but in the community's opinion. Can we provide the service without spending X? And the community wouldn't see a decline in the service. So it's just, they're not easy questions to answer. And there's no right or wrong answer. But this kind of regular spending review is what everybody has to go through. And I guarantee it's what a lot of, we do it ourselves. Even though we're nonprofit, we're still looking hard at our budget and trying to find ways. You know, there's things you can do to try to help put things in perspective. I'll tell you what we do with school districts, and I think it could be done with counties as well. Try to look at all of your spending and break it into 3 buckets. Bucket number 1 is where everything goes that is purely discretionary. Doesn't mean that you shouldn't be spending it, but you don't have to spend that money. Bucket 2 are the things that you have to do to some degree, but you still could maybe operate those a little bit more efficiently. And so that's everything from you have to have a roof over your head and heat and electricity to you have to have some degree of management. But bucket number 2, so you're going to be doing all of those things, but you might be able to do some of them more efficiently. Bucket 3, in the case of school districts, is everything that is solely 100% driven towards improving student outcomes. And the reason you do that is when you get back to trying to figure out where you can operate more efficiently, you should be able to eliminate everything in bucket 1 because you've already determined that money is purely discretionary. You may have very good reasons for spending that money, but this is where we have to compare what we're spending against our goal. And if our goal, for example, if your goal would be to provide good quality services more efficiently so that you can reduce property tax, then it's kind of like if we want to say we need to spend this, you're almost saying it's worth taxing people so that we can spend this money. And I know that can get uncomfortable. We ask the same kinds of questions in our business, and they're a little bit different phrase because it's a different circumstance, but it's what we have to go through in order to make sure that we're operating as efficiently as we can. So those are just some big examples of the kind of exercises you can go through. And it really helps, especially, I think it would help. I understand you have 3 new commissioners. It's just look at it as fact finding. It's not, I hope it wouldn't be looked at as questioning what people have done, but just help us understand so we can make the best possible decisions for our voters.
Anybody else got?
Oh, one other thing I forgot to mention, I just glanced down my notes here. I've seen, and this is very common for local government units to want to have, say, about 25% in reserve. In looking at when we start looking at what they actually have, it's often much lower. So if you're at 25% as a target, you really want to look at your cash flow to determine whether that's necessary. I know school districts are told the same thing. In fact, in some cases, they're told up to 30%. But every year, we find dozens of school districts that are operating with less than 12% year over year. So it can be done. It's cash management. And the good thing about something like that, if you can spend down some reserves, and I haven't studied your reserves, but if you have some that can be spent down, then that's money it's one time, but it's immediately available to help ease the burden. It kind of buys you time to do the rest of the efficiency examination. So does anybody have any questions or comments? And don't hesitate to disagree if you do.
Well, I know part of our reserves, a big part of them are the landfill for the post-closure, which is, it's just an entire guess. But we know we cannot be cannot be caught short.
Right. So do you have any data on what other counties have spent to close a landfill?
We're pretty much, how many counties, Brock, have landfills that are, we're a commercial landfill.
Okay.
Broadcast that says theoretically.
We're at that.
Does that, and this is where, and don't take this as questioning your methodology. This is just part of what we do as counselors. So is that the staff's estimate of what it is? Or is there anything compared to actual closures in other places that are part of, it's kind of a way of testing your estimate? Okay. I still ask them if there's, because it could be to your favor or it could be to your detriment. I don't know. It's just that when you're looking at it, the more unknown, the more data you want to try to get to avoid the surprise. That's all.
One thing that I didn't know about this landfill when I first started looking at data is that it's really big compared to a lot of others. They have 33 employees, where like Barton County and Ford County have like 6 and 7 full-time employees. They handle a bunch of waste that other places don't. They bring it in from Oklahoma, and it's huge. Our landfill is huge.
It's a commercial business.
Mm-hmm. So another way of looking at that is, can you charge more for handling, especially if, it sounds like you're doing business with other states. They're probably coming to Kansas because they don't have any options closer. Is that accurate?
All over the region in Kansas.
We are.
We have suffered through many prior years of little to no rate increases. So we're catching up currently.
Okay. You know, it's, you can catch up a little bit at a time, or you can, it just comes down to, you know, which way you want to squeeze the balloon.
We
Uh,
caught up,
do
we
you-
caught up a lot one time, but then we're still catching up
Okay.
in a,
So you could speed up your catch up
Right.
as a way of producing more profit.
no, I mean,
that
that's,
can be transferred over to your general fund.
we understand that, but we can't transfer that all to the general fund.
Why not? I'm not questioning. I just don't, help me understand that.
Legal counsel, I think, determined that it's not legal for an enterprise fund or a general.
That's correct.
Okay, so here's why we ask these kind of questions. So that, let's assume that's true. And I don't know, because I have learned, even with our own attorneys, I'm constantly saying, help me understand that. Show me where it says that. I need to learn more about it. In this case, if it's true, then it's something that could be changed. And it would take legislation to change it, but that's something you can talk to your local representatives about. Because if it, you know, if you go to them and saying we're having to charge higher property tax, we could do this and give benefits to the taxpayers, but you know, there's money that's maybe kind of trapped in this enterprise fund. What can we do to free up that money? So if you are stuck, look at options to open the door. A lot of times you get these things put in place, if it's legislative or whatever, regulations, they're very well intended, and sometimes they were put in place for to solve a specific issue at that time, but circumstances have changed over the last 10, 20, 30 years, and it's no longer needed or needed to the extent that's in statute. So just ask. Anything else? Don't be bashful.
One of the things that that Steve has particularly been looking at is the benefits package. Any advice on how to start tackling that, because it's very large. It's something that financially is unsustainable for the county at this point.
Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of moving parts in employee benefit costs. If you don't have, you certainly want to get a list of all the employees on each plan. I don't know if if you extend it to retirees. Some governments do, some don't. But this is a case where you want to remember your comparison. Your goal is to help the community. And so you really want to understand how do our benefits for the county compare to benefits that are offered routinely in the private sector. Now, you also have to make sure that you're doing the same thing with employee pay. There was a time when, I've seen this in a number of circumstances. I don't know if it's true at all in Seward County, so I'm not suggesting that it is. But I've seen where pay was low at one point relative to the private sector, and the benefits were higher to kind of offset that. But if you improved your pay levels so that you're more comparable, now you're providing a better deal than your taxpayers typically have. So it's helping to understand that. It's looking at what kind of coverage do we have? Is it a really expensive plan compared to what most of our taxpayers have? Do we offer it to people like retirees, if you do? Because most retirees don't have that. it's retirees, or even if you pass 65. I was shocked to find out, because when I passed 65 a few years ago, I was told by Social Security that I had to sign up for Medicare. And so my company insurance I could have stayed on it, but they would have been paying an enormous premium, and me too, rather than me just go buy a Medicare supplemental plan. And I think that's costing me about $150 a month. So you look at what are the different options? What share of the benefits are you paying versus what the private sector employees pay? Try to do these kinds of benchmarkings, because if you do decide to make any changes, you want to be able to explain why and the rationale for going through it. You may find that there's some things where you thought you could change that it doesn't really, it's not, the juice isn't worth the squeeze, as they say. But yeah, that's a tough one, and but it's a very necessary one to look at.
So the bottom line is, retirees are not on our health plan.
In our handbook, they can take it, but
That's
because of
Cobra.
the cost, nobody.
Yeah. They can
That's
only
a
do Cobra,
rate.
where you pay. So if you retire, and it's for like 18 months, 18 months, you can continue on the county health plan, but you have to pay 100% of the premium. So
Okay.
for a family in the county, that would be not quite $3,000 a month.
Mm-hmm.
So 28, 29, it's just roughly less than 3,000. But again, on the employee benefits and the Blue Cross, up until really currently, prior commissions have not had the appetite. We're still on a grandfathered plan, which is pre-Obamacare.
So right now, the premium
No.
for an individual
No.
policy is $55. And
No. We're talking the total premium.
I'm talking
No, I
about
know.
what the
What the employee-
employee pays. The employee, for an individual
Right.
employee, they pay $55, and for them and their spouse or them and their entire family, it's $335 a month. There's a $200 deductible and a $700 out-of-pocket max for the individual.
Okay, so
So-
how does that 55
It
and
needs to-
350 something compare to the premium that you pay out to the insurance company?
Right. That's what I was before it interrupted. We pay, so the total policy cost for a family plan is roughly $3,000. The employee pays $335 or $350. The county picks up roughly $2,500 on a family plan. It's unsustainable. Has been, but
Yeah.
we had prior commissions that did not have the appetite. They were on the policy. I hope this new commission does not elect to be on the county policy, because we're part-time employees. So if you have a family on the county policy, that's an additional $30,000 a year benefit that the taxpayers are paying. So for every county employee that's on the health insurance with the family plan, the county is paying just shy. I use $2,500. It's just a few dollars shy of $2,500. The taxpayers are paying $2,500 per month per employee on the family plan.
Okay, give me a second here. I want to look at something that sounds like more than we're paying in terms of gross premium to an insurance company, and we only have 10 employees, so we don't get any
Right.
kind of volume discount.
We're self-insured through the Blue Cross manages, so we're self-insured. Partially, yeah. We have a stop loss policy.
Part of the reason that the premiums are lower too is because we're still on a grandfathered plan, and you're only allowed to go up a certain percentage
And you can't change.
unless you break that grandfather status. And as he said, they've never broke the grandfather status.
Mm.
And you can't change the plan there's very little parameters within the plan that you can change,
Correct. If
or then you
want to
get
stay
ungrandfathered. But
Okay.
I know,
well,
I don't
yeah,
know, what is
that's-
the city?
so here, just to give you an idea, here's a family of five. Ours, it depends because we're so small of a group. They rate each person who's covered. So here's a family of five with 3 kids. And this includes dental coverage. The total premium there is $2,300.
But I'm sure the
Ours includes-
deductibles are much higher with what you're talking about than ours.
Yeah, our out-of-pocket max on a single person is $4,950 and $9,900 for a family.
Yes, significantly more, multiple
Yeah.
times.
And,
So-
and that's pretty common
Right.
in the private sector, from what we understand. I haven't done any kind of an extensive search, but and let me look at an individual here. Let's see.
So IMA is our insurance broker, and they've done the benchmarking on like where we are and what other people do, and they'll have all that information for you in February.
So, so I can put him on the spot. He may not like it, but that's neither here nor there. The city's policy is not near what our policy is. And I'm not sure what the contribution is. Just, we're not going to send you to court if you like, if you don't, you're not exact, but do you have ballparks of what the city policy is?
We do. Roughly 25%. They contribute. So family there, we
3,000 a month?
legal policies are where
Really?
because we're corporate. You guys actually have savings. Is the difference between your amount was better. Problem is though, is what those $2 million. Health. And
So my understanding is you guys are putting money aside to possibly become self-funded. We're entertaining becoming self-funded and trying to build a reserve for that. Is that correct?
yes,
Okay.
we're exploring the idea.
I mean, there is have been some preliminary talks like between the city, the school district, the college, the county, and then we could throw the hospital in there too to try to come up with a common policy with common, we're all paying a management fee other than the city. We're paying a management fee to manage our group policies. So possibly come up with a common policy. I think, with the numbers that you would have of all those combined, you might have some purchasing power, some negotiating power in your rates.
Yeah, that's possible. Another option I've seen some people do when they're in a position of, like you mentioned, that grandfather issue. If you want to change, maybe is there a way you can give an employee an option to stay with the grandfather plan and pay a higher share of the cost, or move over to something that's going to cost you less and they wouldn't have to pay more out of pocket.
Right. We did some exploring this past year, but and it was significantly increasing the deductibles. Again, I don't have the exact number, but rather than about a $750,000 increase by literally making the deductible 2 or 3 or 4 times more than what it is current, it was still going to be like a $350,000 to $400,000 increase. So we were greatly reducing the benefits and barely making a dent in the premiums.
Mhm.
And I mean,
Yeah, and of course, it depends on, I mean, there's so many different ways that policies can be put together with what's covered and what's not, and what's deductible and so forth. And, you know, it's, yeah, it's something where you have to have, somebody, an expert, really go through that and look at all the different options, and it all changes every.
right. We've got IMA is looking at it very hard this year because we simply cannot keep up what we've been doing the last number of years.
Yeah.
We no, it's all yeah. Yeah.
I mean, we're looking at.
Yeah. So it's nothing.
And that's inflation rates.
I was on the school board a number of years ago, and we were self-employed there. And Blue Cross pretty much has a monopoly. We did go to United one year. You know, that was a disaster. So,
Mhm.
you know,
It's because of our location.
yeah, you're kind of
Providers.
limited on how you can shop around when you're on something other than Blue Cross. So they really have a monopoly on the market.
We did get our renewal back today, and it went up 5%. So $300,000 increase if you guys changed nothing. So, but yes, we are. I've asked IMA to go to the market, do due diligence to.
This last year was about a 14 or 15%. I think last year was around 15% increase. This year, apparently, it's going to be 5%. So, and these are all
Do you
ballpark.
know if you have any employees, like in my situation, where still working but over 65,
And
that are on your regular coverage?
Yes.
you cannot make them be on Medicare. That was my idea 5 years ago. Don't work.
Well, okay,
Legally,
so,
legally, we can't make them go on Medicare.
okay, but when I went in, Medicare said I hit. It had nothing to do with my company. That Medicare was forcing me to take it. So
No.
that's a legal question that,
No.
you know.
We posed that
some
question
people
5
are
years
entitled
ago.
to it.
5 years ago, we posed that question before. You cannot force your employees to go on. We had commissioners that was over 70. One of them asked me, "You mean I can qualify for Medicare?" No, they're not made to go on there. There is something about the drug plan. If you're not on a qualified prescription drug plan, like through Blue Cross or something, then to get on Medicare Part D, there's quite a penalty you pay. But no, you cannot force people to be on Medicare.
But Dave, what we do is when they turn 65, our employees turn 65, we do send them information, letting them know they are eligible for Medicare, and our insurance company helps us contact them too. But again, we can't force them to go on Medicare.
Okay. Do you have any restrictions on what you charge an employee contribution for someone over 65?
We don't, and again, that's because we're grandfathered. And when Obamacare was put into place and you're grandfathered, you're only allowed to go up a percentage. And I apologize, I don't have those percentages with me. But if we become ungrandfathered, we do have more options there for different plans, different coverages, a higher deductible, lower deductible plan if we want to offer more plan options. I mean, there's going to be several different things that they can look at when we have our meeting with IMA and after they've been to the market and kind of know what the commission's looking at. We've also asked for the state benefit plan for local governments. It's different than state employee plan, but and we are partially self-funded. So there's a lot of things. Causes an insurance increase. They kind of wanted to, the entities wanted to have an understanding that someone just couldn't jump out then because they didn't want to take on that increase. If we all get in it together, some people may have better years than others. And they want a commitment from everybody that you'll ride it out. If you were the ones that had a better year and somebody else had a bad year, that you're not going to pull out and leave them stuck with. So, like I said, there's some logistics to work through with that, but it has been explored because, as Dustin stated, we're all facing, well, across the state. When I just went to meetings in Wichita, 52% of most
do, but that could still be much higher. Or somewhat higher than what your taxpayers are experiencing. And so it can't be a reason to just say, well, we don't have to look there because we're pretty close to everybody else.
Oh, no, I completely understand that. Like I said, our IMA broker, they do a benchmarking study to tell us where we're at. They do private industry as well as other municipalities in the state and out of state too, to kind of compare where we are in comparison to other.
Yeah, no, you've got a good company there in IMA. Do they also, in their benchmarking, that study comparison, do they show you what the employee contribution is, as well as what the premium costs are?
They do.
Good.
Yeah, and I mean, we know we've had a quote Cadillac plan. It kind of goes back to what you were explaining in the beginning, that you kind of have to look at pay with that too, and that's kind of been the county's it's costing if you're going and it's not truly an emergency. So the employees have really tried to listen to that and cut back on those things. Prescription plans, if you can buy it over the counter. We also do the IMA pharmaceutical now, where the top 10 highest drugs that we had, they can sign up through the IMA pharmacy, and it's saved us a tremendous amount of money. I think that's probably why we only have 5% increase this year, because we put steps in to help that. But
I mean, I remember looking at the IMA studies, and particularly the or 1,000. And that is the reality of where the private sector here is on deductibles.
IMA tells us we're literally, I say, the only one in Kansas that has the policy that we have. There might be a couple more, but literally, we're it.
When we become ungrandfathered, that policy is not offered.
Yeah. Let me ask, I don't want to take too much of your time, so feel free to pull the plug on me whenever you want. Because I can sit and ramble all day. I had a question when I was looking at your budget, and this was the 26 budget approved, and you had the 25 estimated expenditures. There was, I think, $1 million listed as an expenditure for reserve for claims.
That would be the Arcalin. So,
Right,
are you familiar with the Arcalin?
I am.
Okay,
So my
so
question is.
we were setting aside money for that repayment.
So where is that money now?
It's in our general fund, but it is earmarked for that purpose only. It has its own line item in the general fund.
So your general fund balance, then if assuming nothing else changed from your estimate for 2025, your general fund balance is $1 million higher than was shown in the budget.
Should be $1.5 million, shouldn't it?
Was it whatever it was? Yeah.
Oh,
So it's actually two.
okay. Okay.
So that's still in the general fund. Why don't you, just to help everybody for more transparency, is there a reason you don't move? It's like having a debt service fund. Is there a reason you don't move it out of the general fund to a separate fund that's completely, it's not restricted. It's just that shows it's set aside, and you get a real picture of what your general fund balance is. I'm not saying what you're doing is wrong. I'm just asking the question.
That the commission's discretion, they can't do.
Okay. Because
I don't think it's a bad
the
idea.
reason It's
you know,
not just for the benefit of knowing exactly how much is there. I'm looking at it from a taxpayer standpoint. If it's in the general fund, then you're going to have to explain, well, wait a minute, you're raising my taxes and you've got this big general fund balance. And that puts you in the position of, well, yeah, but. And so if it's in a separate fund, you avoid that. That's all.
It's certainly something that's been talked about. And at this point, I don't know why it wasn't done. I don't.
I mean, there's pros and cons. So you really don't have full number, that's sort of precisely again. So you're reserving for a liability that technically you don't have. You got a good indication that there's gonna be a liability. That's what you're doing.
Well, I mean, one of the issues, not to beat an old dog, but one of the issues was you can't levy for an unknown claim. But that's not what we're talking about here.
Well, and that's where it's in the general fund. You're really not levying, you're reserving.
Correct.
But you're levying for the general.
You're listing it as a general fund expenditure. So I
And
wonder if
all
you would be.
of these expenditures in here are potential expenditures.
Mhm.
So like, employee benefits, you reserve that money for that purpose. They've never in the last 20 years spent everything that they've got reserved for employee benefits. They have a line item that's reserved for claims. That's for things that haven't been anticipated. You have dollars there to spend. Most years, not all years, they don't spend all of that. And that's where your cash reserves are at. Those are, cash carryover is dollars that you budgeted. That you didn't spend. Look at the budget, don't budget cash carryover. Because like with employee benefits, some of those, we know there's gonna be dollars that aren't spent that have been budgeted.
Have you looked at just budgeting? Because I know some do this. They just budget what they really think they're going to spend, maybe a little headroom just in case, because you don't want to republish.
And that's one of the things we've discussed in budget sessions. Two methodologies of doing budget, the way they've been doing it, and going down and strictly budgeting exactly what you think. But then if you do that, you have to budget a cash carryover, or
Right.
or you're going to get burned.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I'd say from what I've seen, a lot more counties and cities budgets include an ending balance cash reserve in each fund or in most funds than those that budget to spend everything.
say it's right.
Okay.
Both ways, pretty rough. To be honest with you, what most entities do, the management by mill levy. So they're gonna budget where their bills don't go up any more than they have to any given year.
And I guess we're at the point where we can no longer do that.
Most
It-
industries are.
Because this, I mean, and we all know these numbers here aren't real. I don't mean that in a bad way, but
Yeah.
the ending balance isn't a real number. But unless we go through every single department and work through whatever process we decide to adopt to look for the efficiencies and make the changes, it's unsustainable. And
And that's, this budget, all it is a budget. So basically, whenever you get done with the budget, this determines what has to be generated. But yet, as commissioners, you're still tasked with managing to make sure that the dollars spent are spent in the most efficient way possible. So even though you budgeted $100,000 for this piece of equipment, it's still on the commission to get the best deal that they can. So even though you budgeted 100,000, you can do something that is equivalent for 70,000. The commission should be trying to get.
well, and I think everyone here is in agreement that what has been happening doesn't work or has come to the point where it no longer functions. So we have to find a new way to move this forward while, as Steve points out, making a very significant reduction. And what, 4.8 million minimum?
Yeah, Dave, where we're at is depending on BOTA, which, if BOTA rules the worst case scenario. And we have to have 4.8 million of cuts immediate.
Do you have good reason to believe you would be ordered to make the payment all at once?
No, I'm sorry. We have two BOTAs. Maybe more, who knows? The BOTA complaint on the revenue neutral. It was made by
Okay.
the newspaper publisher and the citizen.
Okay.
And then the treasurer's office, anyway, there's hundreds more complaints that have been made through the treasurer's office.
I see. Okay. All right.
And so
Something
if-
else
if-
that just,
If BOTA rules on the RNR, and that's supposed to be February 20th, it was supposed to be towards the middle, not very, maybe a week or week and a half away, but then they changed it. So that will make us, in February, we'll have to make $4.8 million worth of cuts in literally 10 months instead of 12 months.
mhm. Something else just popped in my mind. Do you know if you have anything in your budget for positions that aren't currently filled?
We've already eliminated those this year,
Okay.
last year.
That happens a lot with school districts,
No,
where they'll have what amounts to ghost employees, and in some cases, they haven't been filled for 2 or 3 years, but they're still part of the budget.
That's
Gotcha.
why the
That's
cash
easy.
carryovers, that's why the cash carryovers historically have been higher.
Okay.
So forgive my ignorance, but if we could go back to the whole earmark thing, what was the dilemma about going and putting that money into the account? Because that just seems like best practice, is it
I
not?
mean, for the Arcalen?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it was, when I've been here 5 years and I'm the senior guy, okay? So we were paying back, when I come on, we were paying back a prior valuation with, I don't know what they called it in Panhandle East, not Panhandle,
DCP.
DCP, National Healing. So that was back in 18-ish, somewhere in there. Anyway, somewhere around there, and we, that's why, I could be off a year or two. I don't want to get crucified because I'm off a year or two. So when the DCP ruling come down, they allowed that to be paid back over. They were issued a credit. Just, it doesn't matter if I give you credit or write you a check; it's still money going out. So was that a 5-year payback or 10-year?
I think it was 5. But
Around a 5-year payback.
Mm-hmm.
So then when that went away, then we started putting money, because the Arcalen was already in the process. So the money that we had been putting aside for in the budget for DCP then became Arcalen.
Okay.
So
Dave, what was happening at first in the statute that everybody was trying to use that said we had to put the money aside in a different fund? They weren't wanting us to spend the money that they were paying under protest. We're not allowed to keep the money that they pay under protest. That has to be paid out. That has to be distributed to all taxing entities. So at first, that was what they were proposing. When I say they, some of the citizens, and that was for tort claims too. It had nothing to do with payment under protest and the taxing thing that we were going through. Then now everybody's saying, oh, okay, but you still could put it in a different fund outside of the general fund. That can be done, but what they were proposing in the beginning could not be done.
Okay.
So I'm about the only negative that I putting in the time would be to have something else that would happen. Isolated those dollars and they would be available for.
Well,
It's like your general fund in general to basically pay for anything.
so,
From a budgetary standpoint, you have money that comes from the general fund and goes into a separate fund. General fund, through the commission, all that money back to the general fund. But in doing so, they may have to republish the budget to spend those dollars.
It would be. Yeah, we would have to do a budget amendment. You would have to republish. You would have to have a public hearing, notify the state.
So in doing that, I'm not commission. In doing that, you put some handcuffs on yourself. Good or bad, that's what it is.
But you're a citizen paying a certain number of mills that will let you before Conestoga payback. When it goes into the account. The Conestoga payback, we know it's going where we intended it, paid that money, and it's not going to be able to be shifted off to who knows what at the whim of the commission.
I mean, bottom line, the commission can still do it. If you set that aside, they can still pull that into the
If it's a restricted fund,
there's no restriction. So basically, money comes out of the general fund and they set it aside into a special, called a special revenue fund.
okay,
Payback. Commission has the right, they can pull that back into the general fund.
I thought you were saying it's a big hassle. If we were
It
trying
can
to-
be it will be more of a hassle because like, let's say there's $1 million and we have that in a special revenue fund. So we don't budget that in the general fund. And then we pull back in $1 million, we have to have two things, cash authority, you have to have money in the bank account, and you have to have budget authority. So if I have the budget authority in a special revenue fund, in order for me to spend it out of the general fund, I'm gonna probably have to amend the budget. That process is they'll have to publish it, and let the citizens know, and so they're putting more handcuffs, or more restrictions on themselves, but they still can do. They're just,
Citizens would be aware
they
that,
would
hey,
probably
this
be
money we
more, they
paid
would
for
probably
this
be
is
more aware.
getting pulled out.
Yeah.
It make it a bit more transparent. It ties up a little bit, but make it more transparent. Okay, that is earmarked. Is there anything else that's earmarked that we should know about? Because
So budget, you have your general fund,
Mhm.
you have your road and bridge fund, so the road and bridge is earmarked that you can only do that function.
Yeah.
You have a county building, earmarked that you can only do that.
but like in the general fund, the same way that we're doing this.
Historically, what they've done is they've left everything in the general fund. They haven't really pulled stuff out into a special revenue fund for any other purpose.
X, Y, and Z. Yeah. Okay.
So, I mean, kind of where we're at, just my perspective, there's four others, but where we're at is either in February, we got to go back, we got to lose 17 mills, which is 4.8 million. Even if that doesn't occur, two of the commissioners have made a commitment to significantly reduce the budget, so that the 26, 20, 27 budget and mill levy would be significantly reduced from what it currently is. That makes sense?
Yes, I understand
That-
what you're saying.
Pretty much. That's where, I mean, one way or another, we have to make cuts. Or if the R&R comes back, we have to make significant cuts.
Mhm.
And it's not
So-
gonna be our choice. And I don't.
So you can't start now. You need to start now.
Right, and we kind of are, and you know, your comment or the comment about, you know, transferring from funds, that's a one-time shot. That don't work for 27. So
Right.
whatever we do for 26, if we try to jockey funds around, then just makes 27 worse.
Well, it's just if you determine that you have more than you need, reasonably need, then you can do it, knowing it's one time. But that basically buys you time, because that's money that's available now without changing anything else you're doing. The research you're going to have to do is going to take time, and so it just helps you along that path, knowing it's only one time.
I think a place to start is just examining our own budget and finding out.
Yeah.
Um,
We got to
Yep.
go back to the three steps,
the three buckets.
3 buckets. Sorry, I was trying to,
Yeah,
you know, the three.
buckets.
You know, we
Look
got to
at each.
we got to start with bucket 1 and trim 2 and 3 where they, you know, I mean, bucket 1 is our ultimate goal, but you know, we know we got to have a little bit in bucket 2.
Mhm.
Bucket
Yeah.
bucket 3 is out of the
What
question.
you spend, what each however it's categorized, department, fund, whatever. What was it in 21 actual, and what is it 26 budget? And try to explain why there was, if there, in the cases where there were 30-40% increase above inflation, then try to figure out why. I mean, just, you may have very good reasons, but it's a good exercise and it builds public trust if you go through that. And don't be afraid to show a little vulnerability, is the way I put it, with the understanding that this isn't criticizing what was done in the past. Everybody was doing what they thought was right. And for the benefit of the citizens, we give everybody the grace of being well-intentioned in the past. We're not looking at the past. We have these circumstances, and now we have to look at things differently. So it's not a criticism of what was done. It's a we now have to make these decisions with the circumstances on the ground.
And we can't undo
And
anything
keep
that was
reminding
done.
people of that. I mean, it's you've got a rough situation there. I know what's been going on and with the resignations and so forth, and there's a lot of public upset. So even if it's not your fault, you still have to deal with that public trust issue. And the more that you can demonstrate that you've gone through these exercises, that every time that gets back a little bit of that trust.
Dave, one thing we hear about, and maybe you can point us where to find the information, are the 18 departments, whatever you want to call
People's
it.
furnished those to us before.
Well, we get a list,
Right.
and the list doesn't tell us within that what we actually are required by the state to provide. I suspect in some cases we may not actually be providing what we're supposed to. In others, are we providing things we don't need to? And there may well be a reason why you're providing things you don't need to, but we need to have the actual, what must you do?
Okay,
Sub-items
you're
of the
talking about
items. The
18
sub-items of the
unlimited
items.
mandates?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so I would start, the Kansas Association of Counties, I believe, is the organization that came up with that explanation. I would have them give you the statutory reference
For each item. Okay.
and just show us what the statute says. I'm not saying this is an absolute, but I've looked at a number of these things, and it does say, let's say it says you have to provide courts. I mean, yes, you have to provide these things, but they don't dictate what you spend. They don't say, in other words, it's have a court, and I'll just use this as an example. It's not have a court with this many employees and these other software systems, and it's not prescribed that way. And by the way, the legislature is in the same boat that cities and counties are in. The Constitution gives the legislature a whole lot of unfunded mandates. It's saying, yes, you will have a school system. You will have a judiciary. There's no money that comes with that to the legislature. So in large ways, cities and counties are in no different boat than the legislature is.
So as Steve says, we need the sub-items of the sub-items to know what we're,
And the
Really
sub-items,
doing
of the
here.
sub-items, of the sub-items of the items. I mean, it's,
Yeah.
it can be a huge tree, but
going to be
But
necessary.
some of those, like I'm looking at Gene, like the jail, we can't say, well, you can do this, you can't do that in a jail, really. I mean, we got to have a jail.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Gene's mandate, the jails has mandates that they have to feed them 3 good meals a day and provide medical and all the other good stuff. So,
Right.
but certainly doesn't hurt to look what's ultimately required within those 18 items.
Yeah. And you might also specifically ask the Kansas Association of Counties to identify anything in those mandates where they believe it requires a certain level of spending or a specific type of service. In other words, is it, and I'll go back into court, is it just you have to have courts, or you have to have certain elements within the court system? I don't know the answer to that, but and it probably varies by each of those 18 sections. But and then the last thing I'd add to that is, remember what Ronald Reagan said back in late 80s with the when they were tearing down the Berlin Wall? Trust but verify. Keep that in mind, because we have found probably more often than not when we get inaccurate information from any level of government, they don't know that they're giving out inaccurate information because they're only repeating what they've been told. And that's why that show me your work is helpful. It's, I need to learn more about this. Show me where I can read more about that. And that's a basis for asking more questions. I know a lot of school board members have been told you must or you can't do things, and it turned out that wasn't true. And a number of those came from attorneys. Circumstances had changed. They weren't trying to deceive anyone. It's just been a long time since they looked at it, or maybe they didn't really study it. It's just what, you know how the rumor goes around the room and it changes significantly from one end to the other. Trust but verify. Anything else?
Any other questions, commissioners?
I think we need to chat and chart a way forward, at least for the immediate future.
Okay. Well, I am happy to help with this in any way, and I'll leave it to you to let me know what, if anything, we can do going forward.
Would you forward all your contact information to April so she can forward it to all the commissioners, please?
Certainly. Will do.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you
All right.
for taking your
Thanks.
time.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Anything else? Motion to adjourn?
Well,
I don't know if we gotta have a motion or not.
well, I just to be clear, what is the plan moving forward? Like, what is the next step that we're going into? Is it another work session, or is it looking at?
We got to sit down. You guys got your budgets to look at. You got to.
I'm passing this out, guys. Kind of ask for this. Just give the budget by department as the general fund and the other special revenue funds for the last 5 years. Something I've provided in the budget. The second sheet on there is first two sheets are that. The third sheet is the brief. You guys know where we've been and where we're at now. This is off the county's website. For the valuation, these aren't the budget evaluation. The way the budget process works is February, the county appraiser appraises everything in the county as an estimate. About April, May-ish, she provides that to the commission, and we have an appraised value that the commission uses to base the budget on. And from that point until November, we'll go to the appraiser, approaches and taxes. There's a lot of adjustments that happen between whenever the appraiser gives the county commission an estimated valuation until November, whenever she finalizes the valuation. These numbers here are the final valuation that was used to assess. The mill levies on here are the actual mill levies that were assessed based on that. And I use 2011 as the base year, so you have about 15 years of this is the valuation and this is the mills and a percentage of how that relates back to 2011. And you have a history. The fourth page is the exact same thing for Seward County, but I give it small. That's why I printed Seward County separately. The fourth page has the exact same scenario for the city of Liberal, College, and 480 exclusive of the 20 mills. So on a school district, the state levies 20 mills on every school district, and that goes to the state. And then the state gives money back based on enrollment. So the 20 really doesn't necessarily stay local. 20 goes to the state, and then the state sends it back to the schools based on enrollment. The levy here, the LOB, the local option budget, and debt service. These are the dollars that the school board specifically levies. that kind of gives you a history on what the other entities are doing and what you guys have done over the last.
And to the two former commissioners, I had provided you guys with that information because when the information came out in the paper with the mill valuation and mill levy, I couldn't tell where those numbers came from. And so we took it off of our mill levy and valuation that's certified on our website.
These are the certified numbers. Okay. For the new commissioners, I think I know all of you. Just so you're familiar with what my role has been, I'm the county auditor. Okay, that's my primary. Historically, I've helped through the budget process, but whenever I'm helping through the budget process, I am not leading you one way or the other. I'm providing information. As far as going through and drilling down on any of these expenses, this is what you need to cut, that's not my role. I'm not allowed to do that by statute. So that's not something that I can help with. What I've done historically is based on what the commission has provided me, put the numbers into the budget. And so we get to a certain point, they're like, okay, what's the mill levy if we do that? So I'm providing information just on facts, on decisions that the commission is making. But I am not part of management or not making management decisions, nor am I providing things.
And I serve at the pleasure of the commission. So whatever they've instructed me to do as a majority in the direction that they give him to, I have no voting power. I serve at the pleasure of the commissioners, and my role is to do what the majority has decided to do.
And Dustin is very good at explaining things when you don't have it quite straight in your head.
And like, if you have questions, like on legalities and stuff, some of it I know, a lot of times I'm going to push back to legal counsel. Kind of like the one instance on whether the landfill is supported in the general fund. I have my preconceived, that's something that can be litigated. I'm not a lawyer. Anything that I'm not sure on, I'm just going to automatically refer back to legal.
And we do have a legal opinion on that, and we'll forward it to the commissioners.
Is that the one Forrest was checking on? Oh, okay, good.
And
That's just an example of one that I was approached about it. And that's not something I felt confident that the landfill can reimburse for services that are being provided, but take the profit from the landfill and put it into the general fund.
we cannot do that. They told us that this week. And then we need to be verifying what services we're providing, and putting a dollar figure to it to know what we can transfer to the general.
Most everybody knows where I'm at. All the historical information, things on the budget. Budget, the audit, so through the time, so we do have a lot of resources. On those, going back. And that's the information that I will provide, and that's how I assist providing you guys historical information. And then kind of process.
He runs the calculator.
Basically, that's what it is.
Right.
We're being.
So, Steve, you were saying go through the budget. You're thinking we could go through the budget
think
on
we
our
need
own time and then come back.
I think
On our
we
work
need to go-
session?
Yeah,
So
let you,
I know I talked to Dustin, and a couple of you had asked, and he had thought a budget work session would be good to go over the approved budget with you, go over the audit with you, and then give you guys a chance to figure out where you want to go from there. So I don't know when you want to. We had talked about, Dustin, I don't know if you're available on January 20th, but they're going to meet at 4:30. That's their next commission meeting. that, I know you guys said you were gonna schedule work sessions for prior to meetings. Is that what you want the next one to be?
I mean, I guess it's a start. I don't think an hour's long.
Oh, no.
No, but,
But would an hour, you would be able to cover the budget as it is and explain the audit to them and give them an idea so they know how to move forward?
I mean, at least we could get the overview, right? And let's make
10,000
sure that
foot.
with the commission has time for itself in that work session if we're needing to discuss anything coming up or anything on that night's agenda.
So do you guys need to, because he's saying it will rush in for an hour, do you need to push it up a little bit? And I don't know people's work schedules, so.
I think an hour is probably, doesn't have to cut all the, no, it's, because all it is a 10,000 foot overview.
So it's on your guys' flash drives, but we can also make copies. That,
Might just have that at that meeting.
and we can actually get that for you now if you need paper copies. We'll make it before you leave.
That's the big book of wishes, as it's sometimes referred to.
No, I was just doing the actual.
No, the budget.
Budget, not the big book of wishes.
I'll probably.
Well, I
take a
think at some
paper
point
copy.
it would be helpful to have the detailed breakdown. I mean, we're going to need it at some
The
point.
big book, yeah. And there was copies, but they're
So
not
the
up there.
former commissioners left their books here.
Yeah.
But.
It's not quite
Auxiliary
accurate. We know that.
program, it looks like some of them may have pulled pages out, some of them added
But
pages.
those weren't the final budget, were they? Those weren't the final budget. Those were working copies where we were
Right.
making
Correct.
changes.
So you're just wanting the final budget out of CIC.
Yeah, if we,
Yes.
do we need 5 copies? Maybe.
I don't, that's a lot.
We're,
It's a lot of paper. That's why I'm
we're
asking.
inputting the budget right now, as it is, into CIC.
Oh, so it's not done yet.
It should be done. I would say it would be
Yeah, it's fine.
done. Would give you guys a week.
That's fine.
I don't know that,
Well, I have the state copy. That's what we were talking about. Yeah. It's the CIC budget will break it down more by line item.
will it be like, it won't be that thick, will it? I kept thinking the big book of wishes, which is huge. We don't want to,
No, it won't be
Bigger
that
than
big.
that.
okay. Or the budget book. I'm just like making
That's
sure
okay,
I'm talking.
Steve.
I'm making sure I'm talking about the right book, okay?
We're on the same page. 4:30.
4:30 on the.
Clay? Got anything to say?
I'd like to come by and see them.
John?
He's absorbing.
That's all I'm
What?
trying to do.
Because we got work to do. We got quick work to do.
This is a work session, so we can't make any decisions, but the clerk's office is getting phone calls from the nonprofits asking if you're going to release their funds in January.
I think we talk about that in the 20th meeting.
So usually they have those checks in your check run, so do you want, well, I will just tell her to hold off on those till you guys make a decision.
Those nonprofits get, some of them get a half and a half January.
Some of them do, some of them get them quarterly, and then some of them get them.
Okay.
So,
I'll get the question too.
Anything else? Iro?
Nope.
Hang on. Okay. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Todd, second by Clay, all in favor? We're done.